seem to be in a crisis. We seem to be in a crisis within our financial sector. It appears as if we have lost our way in terms of the effective management of our financial sector when persons within the system are able to take out millions of Jamaica's hard-earned resources. The Jamaican people who have worked very hard over the years and who have set aside their savings in brokerage houses and in other financial institutions. The question that comes up, who are the scammers? Who are the persons who have been able to carry out these huge fraud over a limited period of time? We, as a country, we are in a crisis, and we need to find a way to together to deal with this problem. This is not a political problem. This is a problem of greed. There are persons in the system who want to get rich, and they want to get rich by any means possible. We need to investigate thoroughly what is happening. Who are these people? How are they able to circumvent the laws, the regulations, the rules of the country? How are they able to circumvent the systems, the regulated systems, the FSCs, the Bank of Jamaica's, the other company systems that is set up to protect us, the ordinary citizens? When is the alarm sounded where there is a irregularity within a particular company? When there is the possibility of fraud of millions of dollars within the Jamaican economy? We have seen it recently in the recent case with stocks and securities. It is said that there is only one person who has effectively carried out probably one of the largest robberies in Jamaica, in Jamaica's history. If that is so, it would be a sad day for us all in Jamaica, because Jamaica, the financial systems in Jamaica is set up in such a way that there should be checks and balances. First of all, the companies that handle our investments are required to meet strict regulatory rules that are set up through the Bank of Jamaica and through the FSC. In addition to that, there is a requirement by that directors have a significant fiduciary responsibility to the persons they serve, which is the public at large in the case of the financial institution. And as such, there should be systems set up within these organizations, systems of internal control, systems of internal audit, systems of checks and balances to prevent transactions being carried out one by any one individual, a transaction to remove vast amount of the company's resources. Because if you as a financial institution lend or borrow my money and take my money and invest it in stocks and shares and bonds, whether you invest it on my behalf or you invest it through a unit trust, you have a fiduciary responsibility. I'm talking about the board, has a fiduciary responsibility to every single one of the investors to make sure that the resources are properly managed and that the interest of your investors is protected. The regulatory organizations, the FSCs, the Bank of Jamaica, also has a legal responsibility to ensure that once there is irregularity within the system, that you sound the alarm so that persons will have the opportunity to remove their resources before it is too late. What we have seen in recent times, where millions of dollars have been removed, it is said, from stocks and securities, is unbelievable, in the sense that if the systems of internal control are in place, how can any one individual do a particular transaction amounting to over $12 million from start to finish? What about the persons who sign the checks? What about the supervisors? What about the middle level management who supervise and manages the management of cash? What about the financial department, the finance department, the accountants, the auditors, the internal auditors? What about the external auditors, and what about the reports of the external auditors? To whom were these reports directed, and how were they used? What about the government regulators? Was the government aware that millions of dollars was being scammed over a period by these companies? We go back in history to the whole setup in way back prior to the 90s, when the government had set up companies like Development Venture Capital, and these companies were closed, and other commercial interests, including the Eagle Group, got involved in venture capital activities. We all know what happened to Eagle Financial Group. They collapsed, and we were the victims of the whole FinSac saga, and we paid dearly as a country for that. We're still paying because our dollar has devalued to over 150 to 1 US. And that is as a result of ineffective, poor management by all the agencies concerned. I'm talking about the public sector, and I'm talking about the government sector through the regulators. We have been independent for over 60 years, and we still find it difficult to manage our country. We still find it difficult to control our financial resources. We still find it difficult to find the scammers, the white-collar scammers, the persons who are doing this at the highest level. It is said that after the closure of the Eagle Group, one of the directors who subsequently migrated was able to sell billions of dollars of properties. Where did these resources come from? What is interesting, is that companies, and it is clear using the stocks and securities company as an example, companies seem to be borrowing funds, that is, borrowing investors' funds, and subsequent to that, the investors' funds move out into what they call related party transactions. A related party transaction is a transaction where you own a company, you own a company, that is, you are the major shareholder of the company, and you turn around and borrow money to finance the activities of the company from investors. When you borrow the money from the investors, that is a liability on the company's books. And when the company, without having the resources to pay back the liability, can channel those resources into other companies or offshore banking accounts and use those resources for other means, buying properties or whatever. What comes up in the books would be an asset saying that the company is owed by the related party. And a related party could be a director, shareholder, somebody who is directly in charge of the company. And if the company does not have the assets to back those liabilities, eventually the auditors will sign a report that says the company has a going concern, has a going concern risk, and that the company has a risk of being is insolvent actually, and has a risk of not being able to continue the operations because there's no assets to back the liability. It means that, to put it simply, you take somebody money and you put it into the bank account, and you take it out and you put it into your bank account, and you call it a related party. But the true liability is bigger because you owe more money than what is in the bank account, and you can't pay it back. So that's basically what it is. And this seems to be what is happening with the stocks and securities. What's interesting is they did this movement of funds through another company, which is a venture capital company. I think it is S&L Ventures Limited or something of the sort. And that company, interestingly, was the shell of that company was sold to another company as a shell company. And what was also interesting is that the auditor's report indicated clearly that the company liabilities far exceeded the company's assets and that the company was insolvent, and as such it was not expected to be a viable concern. So the question that comes up is, where did the resources of that company come from? Where did the resources of that company go to make the company to move the company from being viable at some point to being completely insolvent? I think we need every Jamaican to join in this effort to get to the bottom of the high-level scamming. It's not about politics. It's not about JLP or PNP. It's about the saving of this beautiful country. And friends, it's important that we understand that there are going to be forces that will want to divide us, because that is how you're going to rule us. Divide us. And when you divide us, we'll be ineffective and we'll be quarreling among ourselves instead of really getting to the bottom of this problem. This is a chance. It's a time for us to save our country. We are at war. We are at war with a few scammers, a few persons who have been able to control certain areas within the society and use those areas to manipulate the hands, the hearts, and the minds of our Jamaican people. This is our opportunity to really get out there and become truly independent. The world is watching. Don't let them down. Thank you.